Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to all my friends and viewers. Uh, let's continue our let's continue topic about why people buy. As you can see to my banner, when fellows say it ain't the money, but the principle of the thing is this money or it's the money. Trad- uh, traditional approach. Traditional approach to buying motives divides them into two major groups. Number one, rational and emotional, and number two, emotional. The terms rational and emotional permit practically all discussion of buying behavior. Therefore, it is necessary to understand them before going into the more modern, more complex theory of motivation. Rational buying motives. Rational buying motives concern such matters as price, cost in use, durability, servicing, reliability, length of useful usage, and in general, any consideration affecting the full long run cost of article to the purchaser. The classical economics economist predicted much of his theory on the basis of the so-called economic man, who sort ambulatory computer able to feed into his brain a man multiplicity of cause of and performance data and produce an answer that is the most economical behavior pattern he could follow. Obviously, this is too much to expect where the factors are numerous. The traditional motive, however, does play uh, the numerous complex, the human brain being to expect where the factors are numerous and complex, the human brain being unequal for such formidable calculation. The rational motive, however, does play a role practically all buying. As was noted previously, many times play a role in practically all buying. As was noted previously, many times a salesperson problem is to select the appeal that will most effectively stimulate this motive. Even though the prospect may already desire to buy to satisfy emotional drives, we should bear in mind, however, this factor of long-run cost is not limited to dollars and cent cost. It may involve cost, time, in degree, a labor in surrender of security. But the fact remains that a rational decision, uh, even in such matter, is made on the basis of long run costs compared with the long run benefits. In general, business executive attempt to buy as rationally as possible, but they too frequently fail to be completely rational. Personal friendship, prestige names, reciprocity, and status symbol by influence their buying decision. The industrial salesman must never be deluded by thinking that there is a completely rational individual across the desk. For the business executive or purchasing agent is moved by emotion the same as anyone else, and many times these emotions take precedence over the rational pressure. Sh- Shoutout po to Annalisa Show. Welcome po to my channel and good morning. Many industrial transactions can be explained on can be explained only terms of personal friendship or other emotional buying motives which are more discussed in the next section. Emotional buying motives. Long list emotional motives like security, comforts, ego, emulation, pride, sex, secretion, and many others have been compiled by various authority. Although it is helpful to study such lists and discussion, one must realize that complete classification of all emotional buying motives. It is possible one's emotions are so complex that it's difficult to isolate each motive and classify it. Two executive many purchase exactly the same luxurious office furniture for ostensibly the same emotional motive of ego gratification. However, the motive mixes underlying these two purchases could be quite different. The first executive may have purchased her furniture in order to prove to her fellow employees that the possess certain status within the organization. The other executive may have purchased his office furnishing in order to impress such outsiders as competitors, other business executive, and customers to convey image of success, large, uh, largely for business reason. The salesperson must be able to detect these differences in buying motives because it is a serious mistake to appeal to the first executive in terms of external prestige when internal status is desired. Similarly, the second executive would not respond to appeal dealing with internal prestige alone. Some of more common emotional buying motives follow. Physical pleasure, comfort, avoidance of effort. The human being is an animal and naturally lives much of life's on physical level. Humans require food, drink, sleep, and temperature that is not too hot or too cold. Many humans spend most their effort in acquiring these basic necessities. Others are able to satisfy this with a portion of their effort and go on from the acquire other desirable things. This urge is basics and accounts for the purchase food, uh, easy riding car or mattress, comfortable lounge and chairs, shelter, clothes, and convenience about the home or place of work, washing machine, vacuum cleaners, automatic dishwasher, elevator and escalators, beverage, ranch type houses, pre-cooked food, gas furnaces, inside toilets, and cars with automatic transmission. Power breaker, air conditioning, and power steering are all examples of things which we value because they satisfy their urge. The absence of anything that gives us pleasure will cause us discomfort or pain is merely the necessity of putting forth physical or mental effort. But too most of us effort is taking to pain. These generalizations that has exception. Some people enjoy physical effort their muscle seems to demand. Play and relaxation. A form of physical and sometimes aesthetic pleasure may be found in play. Leisure for play has expanded with the use of power-driven machinery to replace human behavior. It is not uncommon to hear a couple of mechanics or truck drivers discussing their golf score. The vacation with pay is today accepted as routine, freeing benefits of nearby every job. Parks and playgrounds offer facilities the automobile and airplane automobile and airplane afford means of reaching these and other facilities. Movies, radio, television, and athletic events cater to this urge for play. Books and magazines satisfy this urge too. Clothing manufacturing are and turning out an increasing proportion of sport style. Even frugal families include in their budget an item for the satisfaction of the desire. Winter and summer resorts have mushroomed. This drive for play is a quite basics in all animals. Psychologists have developed a limited body of thought concerning play. They believe it to be mentally therapeutic. Problem children are encouraged to play out their troubles in what is called play therapy. On an older levels, there are much evidence that adults seek play to relieve their frustration, aggressive pressure, and inhibition. This desire for play is quite strong and manifested in many ways in our society. Note the Note the success of a store decorated in some make-believe decor. A reg of playhouse and customer will come play with you. Witness the success of many nonsense advertising campaign. Mother Nature reacts adversely to being fooled by some margarine while the jolly green giant goes ho 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 and Charlie the tuna bemoans and his lack of breeding. Say come with me to Fantasyland and step aside lest you be trampled by the horde. Disneyland does not make money on children. They are simply the excuse of rationalization of millions of men and women who want to escape the realities of their boring or hurried lives by taking the kids to Disneyland. Play theory leads to some rather useful thoughts for the salesperson. Obviously, if someone wants to play, he needs playmates. Many successful sales reps owe their fortune to their abilities and playmates. Successful executives have limited number of people with whom they can play. Their own their own people in the organization are usually precluded because of managerial consideration. The image person, they may prefer not to let their hair down with peers in the business community for image reason. They often they often have few friends from whom to choose playmates. The Adrio salesperson may be able to play just the right role for such individuals. If the executives want to escape the golf course, a short vacation to Green Briar or Pinehurst, Palm Spring, or Pebble Beach may develop a lasting relationship that people must play. The sales rep's problem is to discover just what from the play takes in a customer behavior pattern. Aesthetic pleasure. We drive by strong satisfaction or feeling of pleasure from the impact of the beautiful on our senses and emotion. This may be beauty of form or color and beautiful in our senses and emotion. This may be beautiful of form of color or sound. It may be found in art, in music, in literature, in nature, in the home or the place where we work. We have only to look about us to realize how strongly these motives has influenced the design of thousands of items, such as automobiles, washing machine, kitchen sinks, stove, furniture, architecture, and landscaping, clothing, and interior decorating of home. Factory, office, and store. The purely utilitarian and functional approach has been modified by this determination to produce things that will also appeal to the ethic motive. The ascendance of these three motives is a result of discarding the harsh ethics inherited from our pioneer Puritan ancestor. For the life was hard work, was arduous convenience, where few leisure was almost non-existent, idleness was a sin, pleasure was achieved only by ceasing work, so pleasure was almost sinful too. Trace of this older thinking persists, but is diminishing amount. The smart salesperson capitalized on this drive by selling particularly well-designed products and by displaying them in such way that will virtues are brought out and it does not no harm to point out to the project, isn't it beautiful? It's the best looking widget made. Self-esteem, pride, ego striving, power, status. Whatever we call it, all of us have it. We want to be appreciated, to be complimented, to be made to feel important. No salesperson can afford to forget the motive. Indeed, many authorities on salesmanship assert that this is the most powerful of all buying motives. Not only must a person feel important, but one craves recognition of his from others. Robinson Crusoe may have felt a satisfying sense of personal advocacy before his man Friday appeared, but this obviously was tremendously enhanced by the gratitude and veneration displayed by his faithful servant. Desire for the approval of others lead us to do things merely because society has laid down certain behavior patterns as correct. We strive climb we strive climb in society to earn election to exclusive clubs or college organization. We labor diligently to become proficient in athletics or music. We seek the spotlight by becoming entertainers. We cultivate acceptable social manner. Why do rich people leave thousands of dollars to elevator operator, taxi drivers, or waiters? Simply because these latter have been kind, have shown respect or affection, thus helping the benefactors to fulfill that he or she was appreciated and liked. Surveys indicated that people who stop trading at certain stores to do so because salespeople shown indifference, which simply another way to saying they acted as if the customer was unimportant. Perhaps their offense was merely a lack of promptness in coming to greet the customer, but this wounded the latter's self-esteem. An appreciation of this very human trait makes it natural for the salesperson to use indirect method in place of the often offensive direct method. It is more tactful to use indirection because this recognizes the right of the other person to feel important. We therefore merely suggest instead of dictating. In long the run, people this uh, country like make their own decision, at least make matter that concern them intimately and on which they feel competent to decide. We all resent Bax's driver so that saleswoman tries always to present her view so that the prospect can buy without feeling that he was forced into. He must have made feel he did to buying that he made a wise decision of his own free. A wise decision must be made to feel that he did buying that he made wise decision of his own free will. The smart salesperson willing to cater to prospects' desire to feel important will not do all the talking. This seller will learn to listen, acknowledging with courteous deference the opinions of the prospect. He is even careful of the manner in which he tells his story, avoiding the appearance of showing off or of being the final authority of, on the subject or telling the prospect something which the latter did not know, that he shuns such introductory clauses as maybe you never thought of is this angle, but or you probably didn't know this before, but rather he is quick to impute his own idea to the prospect or to someone else. If he can say, as you remarked a few minutes ago, or the last time I was here, you know the prospect will more readily accept the idea. The frequent use of the words you know as a comma or pause in a conversation can be equally irritating, particularly to people who are somewhat proud of their language. It is careless habit that is seemingly swept the nation. It is the result of thinking that one must keep noise emitting from his face, even though he was no words is yet ready to say. Silent is a much preferable alternative. The wise person utilizes praise judicially. Judicially, it has been said that the phrase is one hour at least developed resource. It costs so little pays such huge dividends in passing. It may be observed that usually it pleases a person to be complimented on some skill or trait for which one is not frequently complimented, as when a beautiful woman is told that she was a wonderful mind. Someone said, make a man like himself a little bit better, and he will henceforth like you very much. Imitation or emulation. Pure imitation or emulation. Pure imitation, such as display by monkeys and small children, is found to a certain extent adult humans being, but most people imitate others in the purchase of certain things with an idea that by so doing they are showing themselves superior to those who do not thus follow the fashion. This extends them. This motive is akin to your urge for self-importance because we imitate those who are, in our opinion, more important is this respect that we are the youth. The youth wear sports clothes like those who made movie stars wear. His sister has her hair than like some prominent woman. Her mother's labor to master the system of the currently accepted bridge authority. Dad buys a more expensive car than he can afford because many men who he admires drive to that make. This emulation one this emulation one can utilize this buying motive in the sale of many things but must always be certain that the person or persons whom one is suggesting that the prospect imitate are among those to whom the prospects look up. Only the will being like them satisfactory inflate the buyer's ego. Usually this motive is automatically working in the mind of the prospect and little may have to be said about enduring the sales in one choose to bring these motives into open. One must do their care because people do not like talk about it. In the selling of styles good, appeal to this motive is important. It can be utilized best also in selling prospects who are not entirely sure of their own judgment. A skilled purchasing agent and experienced buyer for retail store may resent the sales rep use for this appeal, feeling that implies a lack of knowledge on their part. They prefer their use their own judgment in selling to any uh, opinion, opinionated person. Once will be advised to soft pedals this appeal. Money gain. This is probably the motive to which most salesmen appeal, especially those selling to manufacturers or to resell merchants who resell the product. It may be argue and with some logic that this is not genuine emotional motive, and sometimes it is not, as in the case of the purchasing agent for a manufacturer or the buyer for a chain of retail store. Their objective is simply to make more profit for the corporation which employ them, and they have no knowledge of or interest in what is done with the money they thus help to make. It is not there to spend, and does not satisfy any emotional yearning except make them feel they have done a good job. But many persons have formed a habit of trying to make or save money without giving much thought to what they will do with the money after they become an end in itself. But when the buyer but um, but many persons have formed a habit of trying make or save money without giving much thought to what they will do with the money after they have it. Through years of group thinking and action, the gain of money has become an end itself. This is not rational behavior. But when the buyer's attention is focused on what he planned to buy with the money saved or made, his emotion may play an important part in his decision. If he hopes to satisfy some emotional urge by the purchase. But admitting all this, it is still smart salesmanship to point out, when practicable, the ones which can be satisfied with the money gain by accepting the salesperson proposition. This motive of money gain has two phases. The one prompts the buyer to make money, the other emphasizes more strongly the saving money. Buyers of the first class are willing to spend money to make more money. They are large vision people to whom saving of money is not their aim. The there is nothing of the penurious of or the miser in them. The making of money is more a game, competitive sport than a mere accumulation of wealth. Money is the symbol of power, of success, which is the real aim. Such people are more willing to take a chance with their money than are able than are people of the saver type. A statement such as nothing venture, nothing gain, or it's take money to make money may strike by pay dirt with such prospect. Many door-to-door site proposition appeal to this desire to make money when they promise to pay the buyer money for every prospect and furnish the salesman if the person later buy the deal. The success of such propositions indicate the effectiveness of the money gain appeal. The illusion of something for nothing is still strong to the buyers of the second class. The saver, the salesman's appeals different. These individual savers rather than makes money. His outlook is narrower. He is more cautious to him. Co- he is more cautious. To him, a bird in the hands is likely to be more desirable than to wish two in the bush. Business is not a sport to be pursued for the thrill of winning, but merely because it may add something to the wealth already accumulated. Statements such a penny saved is a penny earned, or why pay more? This will do the same work for less money, or why should you have to pay for their advertising? Will hit home to the buyer. It's a mistake to believe this desire to save money cannot be effective in many sales in which the circumstances might indicate otherwise. One man of means purchased an Imperial rather than a Cadillac simply because he could save $1,000 for an equivalent model. He would be preferred to Cadillac but just could not see paying the $1,000 extra. He did not like it that much better. Many people with money still do not like to feel ripped off or ripped off. With people of little means, the saving appeal can be explosive. Just the illusion of saving can bring forth of sale. Witness the success of many so-called discount houses whose prices are frequently little if any lower. The word discount can work wonders as can the word wholesale. Acquisitiveness. The acquisitive or possessive urge manifests itself in many ways. A few of us the hoard things, more of us collecting, most of us like own things. We seem to have urges to call things mine. Even in a college fraternity house, some members or some imbue with these drives that they prefer to wear their own clothes instead of having the brothers wear them. Much of underlying motivation toward home ownership is the basic desires of people to own land and property. To be a renter makes themselves feel rootless, homeless, insecure. The owners of property is one of revenue people travel in their search for security. The retailer who refuses to stock a new line of goods until the salesperson threatens to give the executive agency to the storekeeper's competitors is allowing his action to be governed by this trait. Shout out to Sir Bird Dreamer. Good morning, Sir Bird Dreamer. Iyan po, ginakitan ko na po kayo. Shout out to Queen 04. Another manifestation is seen when the prospect who had computer uh, an automatic typewriter on trial for 30 days confront the painful prospect of surrendering it. The instincts of possessions come to the front and insist upon the article being kept. The automobile saleswoman play upon this motive when she allow her prospect to drive the cars. One behind the steering wheel, the average drives imagines himself the owner of the car and rebels at the ideas of giving up. Romantic and sexual drives related desire to be with people. The old books of psychology terms this simple gregariousness, gregariousness, gregariousness. Today we are more frank and recognize that much of this drive is the desire to be with two is appeal to members of the opposite sex. Interpreting the term is the most general sense is a clear the sex accounts for the purchase of many things other than the obvious one, such as cosmetics, clothes, tour, hair, styling, and sticker to dance or motives. The young of both sexes are usually interested in romance, of course, but the middle-aged are not to be overlooked, especially when they have reached the age. when romance is apparently about to pass out their lives. It is natural that people cling to it whenever the opportunity occurs. The circulation boasted by certain magazines, purveying pure or not so pure romance, testify to the unquenchable interest in the pace of existence. Most novel or plays of motive or movies are based upon the romantic plot so that the public may revel in vicarious romance. We struggle to retain our hair, our complexion, our figure in the hope that romance will remain or will come to us. We added a bid to Arthur Murray's fortune by signing up for dancing lesson. We take vacation is the hope of meeting an eligible woman or man, co-educational institution of learning or attractive to many because they are co-educational. The venerable man who remembered his wedding anniversary with a gift to his silver-haired partner of 80s, indulging his romantic propensities as truly as he was when he asked her to go buggy riding with him 60 years before. Conjugal love and loyalty are based on romance in the finer sense. Shoutout po to Nika Malipol. Fortunately, this motive is usually working is automatically in mind of the prospect. Little needs to be aid e- or eat overly in the presentation in many even offend many bashful prospect if the salesperson alludes to it. But at the times of clever individual make certain to let prospect know that the proposition will satisfy this yearning for companionship. Many times illustration showing the presence of the opposite sex is some relationship to the product being sold will do the job better than words. There's something about an aqua belva man, a man surrounded by lovely women in supersonic 8 convertible communicate the desired thoughts better than words. Shoutout po kay Chawix. Yeah. Physical and mental health, physical fitness. People have an inborn urge to live as long as they can. Suicide are so rare as to be genuine news. It may be as truly said today as in old times, all the man hath will give for his all that man hath will give for his life. Ayan. Again, physical and mental health, physical fitness, people have an inborn urge to live along as they can. Suicides are so rare as to genuine news. It may be true, may be as truly said today as in olden times, all that man hath will give her for his life. Young people do not worry much about dying or being ill. There are many years ahead for them, so each year is of scant value. They may eat unwisely, sleep too little, and generally abuse their bodies because the consequences are not yet evident to them. But after 40, it's different. The people begin to watch their diet, cut down a bit on liquor and perhaps tobacco, visit the doctor oftener, and take vacation as means of health instead of purely for fun. The bacterial enemy is fear fought with every weapon available in the battle or of vitamins sits on the dining table. We tend to rationalize to explain our purchase in the grounds that they will promote health. We join golf club for the exercise. We go to Florida or buy a sun lamp. We eat various unpalatable foods. We force ourselves to take low-sum exercise. We by reducing pills. We consult psychiatrists to retain our mental health. The fewer profitable remaining years on earth, the more jealous we are of each one of the harder we struggle to prolong our stay. The true salesperson never overlook this urge, knowing that it is powerful. Without it, humans would have vanished from the earth. This desire for health may not be an end itself. This is health may be sought on its means to the end. In fact, it's usually, but this does not loosen its force as buying motive. It should be pointed out that in discussing health, we include not only the negative aspect avoiding illness, but the positive aspect of physical fitness of a condition in which we possess energy and zest for living. Life yields far more pleasure to persons who enjoy abounding the health man than those who are merely well enough to be up and around. A statement such as, you know, you really ought to get out and take more exercise may just sell an expensive set of gold clubs, after which, of course, the man James begged gold cart so he won't overex himself. We discovered in the late 1970s the health appeals have gained considerable strength. We are spending more money on preventive health activities, health spas, vitamins, and exercise equipment. People today are far more conscious of health than we are their parents. Curiosity or the desire for new experience. We like to go places and doing things to travel and visit new scenes, to extract new thrills from life. This urge is found more strongly in the young than in the old. The salesman's appeal to raw curiosity frequently in gaining initial attention and interest but does not utilize this appeal so often in closing the sale as it is rarely the motive that finally prompts the purchase. An illustration of the use of curiosity is the narrower sense is found in the technique of a custom jewelry salesman who carries a small paper bag with sample he plans to show the next buyer he call on. The buyer usually declares that she is not interested in looking at his line, whereupon he sets the bag on the counter and chat a few minutes. When the buyer asks him what is in the bag, he tells his that it contains some sample he is going to show another customer some stuff she probably couldn't sell. And this stage, he dashes out to check the parking meter. When he returned, the sample in the sack are out on the counter and the buyer in demanding why he thinks she could not sell them. The urge to create. People with rockets and model airplanes, designs, dress, decorate their rooms, write poems, paint pictures, invent gadgets, grow flowers, and make home movies. Football coaches devise new plays and system of defense. All these activity and score of others are creative. Many people who spend their working hours some on creative tasks find out for their creative in hobbies. One of the rewards of farming or gathering satisfaction in this urge is assisting in the natures. The urge to create. Yan. They wanted to create self of others. They forgo pleasure for higher satisfaction of feeling that they have done. Their duties. In the average adult, a sense of duty and the desire to be of service are intermingled with the wish to play a conspicuous role in public affairs, and the salesperson can utilize both appeals with success. The appeal to such motive yields better results when used on a conscientious prospect. Parental or romantic loves of selfless devotions to others is motive prompting millions of purchases daily. The saleswoman for room air conditioner calls on family that already has one in the master bedroom. She say, like yourself, my husband, and I slept better after we bought our first conditioner. She then pauses and looks her prospect straight in the eye before continuing. But you know, a funny thing, since we got second conditioner for the little one's room, well, no, my husband and I can really sleep. Fear or caution. This motive is listed the last because it is antithesis antithesis of all the previously listed motives. All those motives are based on the search or desire for pleasurable result. Fear is simply being afraid that we cannot afraid those results or what we may lose the pleasure after have we enjoyed them for a while. We fear the loss of life, of health, or friends, of reputation, or security of job, of money, or freedom, of comfort, of everything which we value. To fail to gain the things we crave or to lose them cause pain, thus we concluded that we chiefly fear pain. It may be physical or mental, but it is pain and we strive to avoid it. The feeling of fear is natural. It is nature's device for preserving us from pain even from destruction. Animals, including members of the human species who are devoid of fear, usually die an early and often of violent death. The fear motive is closely allied the caution and the desire for security. People buy insurance, homes and bonds and stock or put money in the bank house. They are trying to gain security for their old age or for a rainy day. Fire devices, air condition, and a thousand items are bought this because the buyer fears the consequences and not buying them and prefer the security he hoped to gain by having them. As people grow older, the fear or caution motives become stronger. The 20 years old would choose a motorboat for its speed while her father wishes rather to be assured that will not easily capsize. Some salesmen believe that this motive of caution is stronger in other sections of the country than it is in those more recently settled. Of late, we have heard much about the yearning for security. We find pension plans being put in operation by business concerned for the employees. Social security measures have been adopted by Congress to help millions feel more secure in even of illness or old age. We all would like to feel reasonably sure that we shall not go hungry in our old age, that we shall have a decent place to live. We want our children to have an education. We demand hospital care. We when we are ill, we are beset by doubts and fears for the future. And if the salesman can dissolve this and reassure us they are taking care of by his proposition, he is a good chance to sell us because he is satisfying real need. The problem solving approach. The best way for the practical salesman to view the basis for buying behavior may be to note that all purchases are made to solve some problem. The homemaker has a problem of preparing an attractive, palatable meal for family approximately 20 times each week. Diverse foods products and kitchen equipment are both in hope that they will solve the problem. An executive has multitude of problems such as controlling the operations of the firm, increasing sales volume, lowering costs, decreasing personnel turnover, bringing out new product, and increasing the effectiveness of his subordinate. He may buy a new computer in the hope that he can obtain better control over operation to increase the consumer's satisfaction. He may buy new plant equipment in the hope lowering production costs. He may be better office equipment and furniture in the hope of improving morale and lowering turnover. He may even buy a new plant's location in the hope that all his problems will be solved. One corporation president was persuaded to move his research and development laboratory from Chicago to a small western town, largely on the basis that he would solve many of the personal problems in the Chicago plant. He felt that he had considerable deadwood in the Chicago organization and that by moving west, he could select only the key people he wished to keep, thereby pruning the deadwood from the corporate tree. While this was the basic motive behind the decision, he sold the idea to the board of directors on the basis of lowering overhead costs and other rational aspects of the move. He pretended to the major motives was merely incidental. The salesperson should never forget the main things to be sold to any prospect are solution to their problem. This is actually only a slight variation of the consumer benefits theory or marketing. It is axiomatic in all marketing that one does not sell products but instead sells consumer benefits. The homemaker isn't buying a vacuum cleaner for the metal bolts and motor that it contains. Instead, he bought because it delivers certain benefits such as a cleaner house with less work. Since the benefits to the business executive are usually solution to problem, the industrial salesperson should be a seeker problem to solve. On first obtaining the name of a prospect, the salesman should immediately start looking for various problems which his product can best solve for the prospect. The salesman's work and as an executive is such as problem in troubling department. When executive admits that they are in need such a problem, the salesman then asks for permission to make an intensive study of it to see if his product offer a good solution. After such a study has been made, the salesman presents his recommendation showing how his product will solve that problem. This one reason industrial selling is attractive for the college graduate. If one is selling product which solve a certain problem, the sales presentation will be more effective and pleasant than if the product is somewhat questionable. Most of the time, industrial selling, the salesman is making money for his customer. Many products and services solve more than one problem. The installation of dictating system is a company may solve serious shortage of adequate secretarial help, but it can also solve the problem of the expenditure excessive executive time in getting correspondence. It may also have the problem of communicating with various people operating in the field. In general, more problem or product sold, the stronger appeal it will have the potential customers. Also, the seriousness of the problem solved directly affects its attractiveness prospect seldom by items which solve only minor problems. They may use their limited funds to solve most pressing one. The self-concept theory. The self-concept theory of buying behavior is closely tied to the emotional buying motives of ego gratification. However, it furnishes a much more definitive explanation of the consumer's behavior than just simple assertion that one buys a given product in order to gratify his ego. This last statement is subject to the additional question: just how does it gratify his ego? First question. The second, the theory of the subconscious is probably the best integrated thought on buying behavior to date because it is nicely combines the rational emotional approach, the pleasure pain theory, and the problem solving approach into one unified concept. In addition, it is equally applicable to non-buying behavior. This theory of behavior is a recent contribution of the behavioral scientists, and it is consequently being continually refined and supplemented. There also arises the problem of semantics. When dealing with anything complicated as a person behavior, many concepts must be tagged. Unfortunately, different scientists have assigned slightly different tags to essentially the same concept. The terms self-image and self-concept are two examples of the talk in terms one's perception of oneself. Clearly, the student of behavior must be well up on terminology in order to comprehend. Oh, shout out to Min Santos. The different selves that determine buying. The term self-concept is a bit misleading for it implies that a person has but one self-concept. Actually, buying is a strongly influenced by several different self which is individual conceptualized in the mind. Real self. The real self is what really think one is. It is the person concept of his abilities, personalities, character, and other factors which go to make up his total existence. The ideal self. The ideal self is how one would like to think of oneself. It is one of his personal goal. Much of one behavior is directed towards making one real self coincide with one ideal self. One small portion of a man ideal self might be that he is a great football player through the help of his coach. His real self screams that he is only an average player. His ideal self would drive him to perfect his football skill and participate in the game with extreme vigor. Whose ideal self claims all over uh, another player whose ideal self claims only average talents would behave different. The real other. So yan, magkakaiba po yan. Ano? Ang tawag po dyan the different self that determining buying. The real other. The real other is how a person perceives other people really see him. What other people think of him is ability and his personality. Notice that this is nothing to do with how other people actually do see The individuals wants real other to be a social lion. The real other may be far out of tune with reality. He may be believe that other people think him to be a social lion, while in reality they see him as an utter bore. The entire self-concept theory is based on what individual perceive of himself and what he thinks other think of him. He can only translate to the best of his ability what others actually think of him by their action around him. Unfortunately, many people have faulty translating devices in protecting the real other from damage. They will either refuse to acknowledge many messages from other people or will mistranslate them into whatever they wish to hear. Never underestimate the power of the mind to screen out or distort message it does not want to perceive. The ideal others. The ideal others is how who wants other people to think of one. A man wants others to think that he is good husband, a kind father, and a wise homemaker. He will buy and do many things to create this impression among the members of his reference group. The ideals others and the ideal self do not coincide completely. They can differ significant. An executive may wish to be thought of by others as generous employers while secreting wanting to be tight-fisted as possible. Another person may wish others to believe him to be religious, but nowhere in his real self is the religion. This is hypocrisy. Most people want to other to think them honest, but experience indicate that many harbor two such restriction on their behavior is the real life. In true individual has many different other concepts as many as the reference group. That is, he wants the different groups to see him in different ways. Let's take a successful executive and an example. On the job, she wants a work group to see as an enlightened, intelligent, responsible executive. This other will vary between subordinate and superior groups. She will want her subordinates to see her different than her superior groups do. She will want to peers to see her in different light. At the country club, she wants her friends to see her as a certain sort of person, while at home her family will have even different ideas about her. Behavioralists has assigned the term generalized others to denote rather total overall ideas other when discussing an individual without connection to a reference group. In strict theory, it is difficult to consider the behavior of an individual outside of reference group. Impact upon behavior. People express themselves to others to and to themselves with the goods and services they buy as well as through non-consumptive activities. However, it should be pointed out that there are extremely few activities in this society that do not require the consumption of something. The individual is constantly trying to bring the real self and ideal self closer together and to make the real others and the ideal others coincide. Think of the impact of driving new Corvette upon one's self-concept. What is the driving trying to say himself and others? Wouldn't he receive much satisfaction if even others did not perceive of his ownership? Frequently the situation in a very large city. Think of the effect upon woman's self-concept as she strolls around a luxurious home among her fine furnishing, even though few people may be aware of her fortunate situation. All these tangible symbols reinforce her self-concept. Of course, when a fortress effect the real other also, then far more satisfaction is obtained. But the point is the many seemingly ostentatious purchases are made partly for purchase other than impressing other people. A wealthy man buy expensive silk undergarments solely for the effect it will have on his real self. They will serve to remind him constantly that he is a highly successful man. Perhaps nowhere are differences in behavior between people and different self-concepts so evident as the cases of women who perceive themselves as homemaker and those who see themselves as professional career women. The key point is that the mind continually requires evidence of who had what is it. It is insufficient that one is in fact highly successful if there is a little or no evidence of it, which can be perceived by oneself and others. Some readers may be bothered by the constant reference to the desire for success. Remember that mind seeks to knowledge, the knowledge that is adequate, that this drive for personal adequacy is basic. A person is successful when this adequacy is achieved. Success can be obtained at any level. It is reference word denoting how close one is to one's goals. People constantly tell the world who and what they are by the various things they do, say and buy. College students shout out to all their status through their clothes, speech, and other less subtat, uh, subtat, subtle forms of behavior. They want to make certain that no one confuses them with a high school student or with working class youth of their own age. Similarly, members of the motorcycle set clearly proclaims their uh, allegiances. The symbolic communication is not in the least foolish. It serves as a silent but speedy means of communication. Walk into most office and both can use be identified by some symbols of the office by the office. This serves embarrassments to all. The role of reference group. Reference group theory is extremely important to motivational analysis because of its effect of the individual self-concept. Every person is a member of several sociological groups. One may be a member of a neighborhood, work, musical, church, square, dancing, or golfing group. One's role in each of these groups may differ considerably. In some you may be a leader, while in other you may be a follower with a little stature. In additional, there are usually groups which you wish to join. You are not now a member but wish to be. The price of admittance and dues to a group in conformance, conformance to its standards. One must have been one must within certain limits to be a member of a group. Groups vary in the pressure for conformity. Some are quite strict and maintain narrow limits for behavior, while others are relatively permissive in the behavior they will tolerate, but all of them have some standard which must be observed if you wait to stay the group good grace. These reference groups interact with the individual self-concept. You select your reference group largely on the basis of your self-concept, and the reference group give many additional dimensions to those concepts. A man may visualize himself as a sportsman and join several athletic groups such a country club or road and gun club and football booster organization. Once he is in those organizations, their membership will sharpen his idea about himself. His golfing buddies will let him know exactly how much of a hacker he is. Study a person, a key fair reference group, and you will know a great deal about him. With whom does he spend the most time? Whose company does he seek? Four levels of abstraction. The self-concept is a complex phenomenon that is almost impossible to chart is completely actually one can serve about four levels of abstraction in the self-concept of most people as indicated. First of the top people have broad general feelings about themselves such as I am good husband and father, I am honest and law abiding, I am rather shrewd and no one puts anything over on me, I am athletically talented, etc. They are abroad of the broad. Overall generalities which guide most of the individual's behavior. One should not jump the conclusion that all people hold the same general concept. Many men judging from newspaper accounts do not see themselves a good husband and fathers as particular law-abiding. Evidently, too many people believe that they are criminals, capable of outwitting society. Some even men see themselves as anything but athletically inclined. Such people frequently go to the other extreme and decry anything resembling exercise as an utter waste of time. The second level becomes little more specific under each of these general categories. The man who visualizes himself over uh, the second level becomes a little more specific under each of these general category. The man who visualizes himself overall as being an athlete might see himself more particularly as being a good golfer, a poor bowler as inept baseball player, an excellent swimmer, etc. One holding the general opinion of being a good business executive might qualify that thought with the idea that he is good of selling but poor with paperwork. The third level becomes considerably more detailed. The athlete who believed that he was a golfer might have a real self that he was 70s shooter and have an ideal self that is part of golfer. This specific concept really strongly influenced his buying behavior. It would be unthinkable for a part golfer to tee up a cheap ball. Instead, he will be hitting the best he can buy. How could this possibly push his real other self in his idea other self up to her. He want them if he were to tee up a cheap ball in front of his immediate reference group, the other members of the foursome. He will also have to buy different clubs and other equipment to match this self-concept. The fourth level becomes quite specific. The golfer has certain qualification to his game in to his game. He may himself as a long ball hitter who is rather inaccurate with the long irons. In addition, he knows that he is strong around the greens but that his putter is erratic. These ideas will all cause certain buying behavior. Certain golf balls are sold off the field that they are for the long ball hitter. Certain putters appeal to the individual who is uncertain of the portion of his game. To all my friends and viewers, you can draw as 20 circle. This 20 circle at group as 5. So 20 circle. In this skill circle, write a good family man. Second circle, smart. Third skill, honest. Fourth, athlete. Five, hardworking. That is the first 5 circle. The second 5 circle, right, poor baseball player. Six, fair football player. Seven, good golfer. Eight, mm, and nine, uh, average skier. 10, good basketball player. Third row, 5 circle, right low, 80s shooter. 12, erratic performance. 13, pleasure golfer. 14, even temper. And 15, like side best. And last set, 5 circles, long ball hitter, tendency to slice, weak long irons, good and short irons, good around green. This is that you call levels of abstraction in one self-concept. So let's start. So good family, smart, honest, athlete. From the athlete, draw uh, arrow or straight line down sa second set of 5 circle. So athlete, poor baseball player, fair football player, good golfer, athlete, average skier, and good basketball player. From good golfer down, straight line on down, or put an arrow. From good golfer, low, 80 shooters. Next, erratic performance, goalkeeper pleasure, good golfer, even temper, good golfer, like side bet, or good golfer, even tempered. From low from low 80 shooters, just draw a line down. Long ball hitter, tendency to slice, weak on long iron, good short irons, and lastly, good around green. While we have devoted our illustration to developing some of uh, ramifications of the self-concept of a good golfer, This same exercise can be repeated for each of the other segments of one self-concept. The naturally one can become aware of one's self-concept only with experience. Experiences tell us what we can and cannot do successfully. Hence, it is only natural that the older you become, the clearly your various selves become to you. A young person has difficulty with the self-concept theory because his concepts are not yet clearly formed. Interesting, one bit of search of this theory indicated the young college women have far more definite idea of who and what they are than to their male counterparts. Perhaps the foregoing appear forbiddingly theoretically of complex too much to too much so to be practical. Most people are likely to view with scorn the theories of the academician. They avoid the use of the word psychology and prefer to use the term human nature. But this self-concept thing is human nature and is not so complex. It merely puts this question to the salesman. What sort of person does this man think he is? And what would like to be? What kind of man does he believe other people think he is? What would he like to have others think about him? This paragraph is extremely important. Every salesperson tries to size up the prospect along this line. He knows that it's important to find out what his prospect wants. Then then the wise salesman can show how proposition will help the prospect to get what he wants. Eh, is as simple as that. Of course, no one expects to obtain a complete self-concept of any prospect, but this is not necessary because one needs only a segment of the whole, the segment which affect the prospect attitudes towards buying what the salesperson is selling. Naturally, the self-concept of every individual are constantly changing, but this is not too difficult to detect. The small boy abandoned his dream of being an astronaut and settled for playing forward on his school basketball team. Later, erased the picture and sketches one of himself as drawing board, designing buildings, or at 7 foot desk with an intercom, three telephones, and framed picture of his family. Two, some people formulate this concept earlier in life and it's more detailed than do others. They are more introspective and imaginative. Frequently, the salesperson find it's necessary to help the prospect to formulate a self-concept which has been vague or even unformed, as when the sales representative for corresponding course awaken some youthful prospect to the possibilities of climbing out of his humble environment and becoming person consequence. But even with all the qualification, this theory will be found practical and helpful because it forces the salesman to focus his attention on the prospect and his hopes, needs, is, and aim in life. Only when a salesman that this can present his proposition most effectively. Merchandise and aid to focus on self-concept. People use merchandise and other forces as a means of superimposing the real and ideal self over and another while at the same time strongly affecting the other self. The golfer, by using a titless ball, is not only convincing himself that he is a good golfer, but he is also trying to shape ideas of the others of as to his golfing talents. The woman buys a mink coat is using to help more the hero self closer to the ideal self and the same time moving the real other self closer to the ideal other self. The manager who feels that he is an important executive will frequently surround himself with many symbols of his status, such as luxurious office equipment and furniture, so that other people will recognize his high place in the hierarchy. While at the same time he is continually reminding himself that his real and ideal self are now quite close. This executive, for the same reason, may prefer to drive in Cadillac Live in the most desirable section of town and regard with satisfaction the swimming pool is in his yard. All this consumptive behavior is designed to serve the same end, to help his superimpose more of his real self on his ideal self. This would serve as a constant reminder to him and others of what role he is playing in life and what goal he was attained. Using the self-concept. Quaker Oath as capitals upon self-concept theory in advertisement, portraying a homemaker as saying that when she feeds her child Quaker Oats for breakfast, she knows she was done for her best for him. If a woman is playing the role of a socialite, the social aspect of the portrait should be presented with emphasis on the fact that women whom she recognizes as social leaders have both the product, providing that is the smart thing to do. On the other hand, if the woman sees herself as being essentially a homemaker, such appeal could be disastrous. Instead, the salesperson should emphasize how she is pulling her role by buying the product. You owe it to your family. An electric typewriter saleswoman can tell much about the concept of the business executive upon whom she called by observing the environment in which they work. One executive may be surrounded himself with modern equipment and fine working environment while the next work in some dingy, old or outdated equipment. The saleswoman now must vary her presentation to take into consideration these obviously differ self-concept. The first must probably see himself as a progressive and successful professional business executive. He can be sold by implying that an electrical typewriter is the mark of truly efficient and modern office. The manual typewriters are past. The second executive seems to be of old school, those who pinch pennies and discard machine. Only when they wear out, Air probably believes that he runs an efficient operation and prides himself on his low overhead. He can best be sold by stressing the actual out-of-pocket cost in which can be saved by operating smaller office payroll. Barriers to buying. To continue with the sub-concept theory of buying behavior, it's become logical that barrier can exist which will prevent the prospect who has the authority to buy from buying given product. These are three barriers. Number one, incapati- incompatibility of product with self-concept. Two, risk of moving away from ideal self. And three, guilt. Incompa- Incompatibility with self-concept. A person may refuse to purchase a product because it purchased is simply incompatible with his self-concept. Or to put it another way, it does not fit into the role which the person is playing in life. A successful business executive seldom will wear shoddy clothing or allow his personal appearance to deteriorate because such behavior is incompatible with his role as a successful business executive. A parachuting golfer would unable to bring himself to be certain branded balls. An intellectual would be incapable of reading trashy magazine. A landmark motivation study of the purchase of instant coffee discovered that one of the barriers to women use of the product was the fact they consider it incompatible with their concept of themselves as diligent housewives and good cooks. In selling cakes makes the homemaker manufacturer have found that they must leave something for the woman to do or she will not buy the mix. Excuse me. She must feel that his role is making the cake insufficient to enable her to claim that it is her own and not a baker cake. The small part she play help her fulfill her role as a homemaker. One of my asked why she would cake mixes at all. If she made the cake from raw materials, she would be playing a more important role. The answer is that with the cake mix, not only can she usually make better cakes, but activities make them oftener there by giving her family more pleasure with her culinary activities and maximizing her satisfaction. In conclusion, the salesperson must make certain that the product is compatible with the prospect's self-concept. If it is not, the chances for a sale are slim. A woman active is the woman movement find many as the symbol of the housewife totally incompatible with her self-concept. Ways of moving away from ideal self or idea others, a person is constantly striving to bring her life self closer to his ideal self and Israel or other closer to his idea. Either he will want to buy any goods which he believes will facilitate this movement. However, if the purchase of an item involves some risk that it may be moved the buyer away from his ideals, he usually will not buy it even if ultimately the purchase might prove to be a wise one. The prospect prefers the status quo rather than risk moving away from his ideals or jeopardizing his self-concept. The sales of new products suffer because many people are uncertain of the new items, impact of their self-concept. Guilt. All aspects of one's self-concept are not completely harmonious with one another. The man who visualizes himself as an excellent golfer may have difficulty reconciling this concept with another that is good husband and spend considerable time with his family. Similarly, a business executive may believe herself to be exceedingly shrewd, able to extract the largest profit out given levels of sales, while at the same time considering herself a good person from warm to work. There are many areas of business operation where these two concepts would come into complete union. For example, may propose a substantial person plan which she feels would unduly lower profits but definitely provide herself employee an attractive retirement system. The final choice between conflicting concepts if the person is free to choose, usually in favor of the one which ultimately is more important to oneself. Although a person might like to own a sport car, the desire is not fulfilled because it's great guilt feeling. It is a conflict with more dominant concept. A sport car is a selfish purchase for a family because there are room for only one passenger other than the driver. The family cannot enjoy the purchase, hence a long time comes for the four-seat sports car or to allow this person to satisfy her sporting urge and yet rational that car can be enjoyed by the family, similar a man who desire. to buy a Cadillac may refrain from doing so because he know that he defend that if he spend his money for it, he will have penalized his family in other areas. On the other hand, if a person can be rationalize his buying behavior in terms of social accepted concept, buying becomes quite easy. It is easy for parents to rationalize the purchase of a pool of or camper and other recreational goods on the grounds that they are trying to maintain their health and want to have fun with the family at the same time. A man may desire an expensive camera and may rationalize the purchase on the basis that he wants to keep a pictorial record of his beloved family. True, an expensive camera would probably to do job he may be nevertheless spend several $100 for elaborate equipment. In conclusion, the salesman must do everything in his power to remain guilt-causing appeals from his presentation. He must frame his appeals around nationalizing reason for purchase. In selling photographic equipment to a parent, a limited income to a wise sales reps would play down the hobby aspect since they tend to be selfish one and would play up the love of family appeals. A sales reps looping, playing bridge, and gossiping if she buys a dishwasher should tell her that she know will have more time to spend with family. Again, this is the preparation for selling why people buy. Distinction between buying motive and talking point. It is very important to distinguish between a buying motive and talking point. A buying motive is an inner urge that makes desire the proposition that the salesperson present. It is a psychological concept, not a material one. It is in our mind, not in the product. For example, the automobiles The automobile sales rep say, "This car is air conditioned. This is a talking point, not buying motive. To sharpen this talking point and drive it deep into the prospect mind, the same salesman say, this means that the car have trade in value because in a few years nearly all cars will be air conditioned and most buyer will demand it even in used car. Here appeals to buying motive of gain of money. On here may say, remember when cars did not have heater, well air conditioning is important in hot weather as a heater is cold weather. The comfort of riding in 72-degree temperature rather in 95 outside is really something. There is no noise of wind or tires or swoosh of passing cars interferes with conversation or listening to the radio. A person hairstyle is not ruined and will be impress your friends. Several buying motives are here stimulated, including comfort, pride, and the love of conversation or music, which might be appealing to the aesthetic appreciation of the prospect. In this various appeal, the talking points is the same air condition, but quiet, different buying motives are stimulated. Shout out to Coach Dreamboy. Welcome to my channel. In this various appeal talking point is the same air conditioning, but quite different motive are stimulated. Some writers have failed to distinguish between buying motives and talking points, sometimes listing such quality of the product as dependability or performance over style under the head of buying motives. Clearly, there are no such thing. They are talking points which may be presented in such way as to appeal to different buying motives. Why does a buyer desire good performance in the article to be bought? That is the question. Because it will give less trouble, comfort, or ease or security, or because it will be economical to operate trip or it gain, or because it is satisfy a desire that it ought never to be listed even among talking points in an automobile. For example, what do we mean by performance? Power or gasoline economy? We cannot have both. Ease of riding or ease of parking. We usually must sacrifice one obtain the others. Style is no more a buying motive than red or big sweet. No quality of product is a buying motive. The buying motive is a repeated is a mind of the buyer and not inherent in the product. The failure to distinguish between these has been evident in many full sales manual and training courses. In my good idea to mention again that any talking point is likely to appeal to more than one buying motive. For example, an air conditioner to be installed in a window may be sold with talking point that it filter the air as installed in window may be sold with talking point that filters the air as is enter the room. This talking point may be presented by a clever salesman so that it will appeal to their buying motive. He can point out that it keeps the room cleaner and save frequent dusting. That is boon to sufferers from hay fever or asthma causes by inhalant allergens that is filtered out smoke and dust, which are unpleasant and yet bound to come in when window is open for ventilation, that walls is curtains will stay clean longer. Concentrate the stronger buying motive. Study the motive most likely to move each prospect to buy and then concentrate on the particular motives. Much as boxers concentrate his attack on his adversary's scores, nose, or cut eye, but it is not necessary to consider the sales interview as battle. The sales rep should look at it in this way. Here is a protect who is eager to make money by showing him how many proposition can make money for him. I will be doing him real service. The satisfaction of this one will mean more than anything else I could do for him. When the sales reps discover that no progress is being made by an appeal to a certain motive, the appeal can often be shifted to another motive without any change in the taking points being used. For example, she sales reps for medium-priced automobile was attempting to sell a car to a family consisting of a husband, wife, and 18-years-old daughter. He felt the sale slipping away for him and knew for the conversation that his prospects were probably going to purchase another car costing $500 more. He had learned that neither to the husband nor his wife knew much about the mechanical construction of a car, and he rightly reasoned that were buying the more expensive car satisfied club. Mr. Andrew no was the reply. We should like to bout feel we can afford it. This gave salesman the opening for which he had been sparring, and he proceeded to emphasize to improve social standing that membership in the club would confer on Mrs. Andrew and their daughter the opportunities to mingle freely with the elite of the community, and the business prestige and that would come to Mr. Andrew. He so stimulated this same buying motive pride, although with different talking points from those who used by his competitor, that he persuaded his prospect to buy his car in order that they might be invest almost amount saved in a country club membership. This is only an illustration of a big principle in selling that salesperson can frequently transfer an appeal to new talking points while still playing upon very buying motive that seems to be operating in favor of a competitor. Whenever the salesperson is offering a proposition that will save time or money for the prospect, this should be borne in mind. The desire to make or save money may not dominate this particular prospect, but perhaps the prospect can be shown that might be done with the money saved through its purchase. The prospect should be shown how this money can be used to satisfy some other buying motive desire. The appeal to saving used by the agent selling bonds, for example, is weak unless at the same time she conjures up in the mind of her prospect the use that he would make of the money that saved or made. This is offer unlimited to play the saleswoman powers of description as she called up the pleasures of winters in California, an automobile trip through a New England delights of books, long desire the possibility of spending the children to college desirability of employing additional help to relieve the wife of some her household labors to add the prestige that financial success would bring in the eyes of business associate the satisfaction of gaining or a business rival. The seller is moving the prospect self-concept much nearer his idea. These lines of reasoning also apply to the saving of time. Time may be stopped life is made of, but its no value is merely saved. In fact, it is impossible to save it is in the sense of hoarding it. Time can merely be spent in another way, and it's the task of the salesperson to show the prospect in as alluring a way as possible just how this saved time may be spent to bring the greatest satisfaction. When one considers what a multitude of things are sold on this basis, the saving of money, time it will once been seen the unlimited opportunities are open to the salesperson whom is sufficiently alert to seize them. That discussion of buying motive is not fully theoretically and academic is proved by experience of many concerned. The general sales manager for a company selling fire extinguishers say is the company house organ. From many years experience is in the business meeting hundreds of a successful fire extinguisher salesmen. I am convinced that our most successful men use the fear of fire appeal after you told him on the fear of fire and the value of fire protection. The order will come easy. In fact, he will do the buying. It is good strategy to cover all about the possible buying motives early in the sale, not dwelling too long or any of one of them until you can determine which of them are most likely the interest prospect. After you have thus touched on all of them are made up in your mind as those as to one that you wish to stress, you can spend balance at your time on those. Let's go to the discussion question. Number one, the term perceived risk is used in marketing to describe the mental evaluation a person makes of a proposition that is made to him. If the perceived if the perceived a person if the perceived risk is sufficiently low for him, he buys. How does perceived risk fit into self-concept theory? Number two, how many salesperson make the prospect think he is buying instead of being sold? Three, is one ever justified in appealing to fear as a buying motive? Four, sometimes a person is prompted by one buying motives to make a purchase while being restrained by different motive. Homemaker might like to buy an automatic dishwasher for its convenience. What motives may restrain the person from doing so? 5. What are some of the more common subconcepts American men and women about themselves? How can we appraise a prospect self-concept? 7. Careful diagram your real self, ideal self, real other, and ideal other in every category you feel inappropriate to you. These various purchases you have made and describe their impact on the self. 8. You are selling for Norman Hilton, a manufacturer of expensive 150 to $150 unit suit. What buying motives would you use in getting a fine menswear store to carry your line? Number 9. You are the retail clerk selling Norman Hilton suit. What buying motives would you use selling the use to a customer who has been buying in $125 price line? Why might you buy one as a customer? What may restrain you beside lack of money? And lastly, number 10, question number 3. Frequently, one encounter prospect who has been pre-motivated, conditioned by previous experience to do certain things. Perhaps he has previously owned a television set that require frequent repair, is now motivated to buy a trouble-free set. How should how should such instance be handled? All right, this is the end of my first topic, preparation for selling why people buy. Let's go to the next topic, the selling process. So, the selling process, my topic is prospecting. Yeah, that my title. My topic is prospecting. Small opportunity are often the beginnings of a great enterprise. Shoutout po kay Laika Vlog. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming, Shaika Vlog. Laika Vlog. Laika Vlog PH. Thank you po. Wait lang po. Okay, let's go to the prospecting. So, in prospecting, the importance of prospecting, the first step of the selling process, is often overlooked by the uninitiated. There are many good salespeople who would maintain that the key to successful selling is successful prospecting. It is that the important, unquestionably, the route to an orders begin with prospecting. For the reason this discussion of the selling process must begin with a true analysis of prospecting method. Good prospecting means are more good prospecting means more sales because it's allow the salesperson to spend scarce selling time in contact with people whose probability of buying is high. One of the realities of selling is that one spend a relatively small portion the working day in actual contact with potential customer. A great amount of time is spent traveling, waiting, and servicing account. Many salespeople make only one or two calls a day. If those few calls are not made on a good prospect, the day is wasted. Your performance will be seriously impaired. If you waste time trying to sell to people who are poor prospect, let's examine the mathematics involved. Suppose two people equal the persuasive ability, each make 500 calls on potential customer. Pam is a better prospector than Gus. She has selected 500 prospects who, on the average, has 50% chance of buying, while Gus, on the average, will only be able to get orders from one-third of his prospects. Moreover, Pam's calls were made on potential accounts who were larger than Gus' account. Pam's average was $700 and compared to Gus $500. Now let's see what this would mean in sales volume. Pam and Gus. Calls time 500. Pam, Gus 500. Probability orders times 0.50 times 0.50. Gus times 0.33. Orders 250. Orders time 250. Pam, Gus 167. Average order Pam time is $700. Gas time is $500. Sales volume $175,000 while gas is $83,500. Certainly, these figures are hypothetical, and there may be no such thing as two people equal ability, but actual sales experience prove that the differences in the potential payoffs of a various prospects is much greater than that assumed above. Remember for a moment the great disparity in size among business concerns. You can call on hundreds of small concerns all year and still not bring in the volume that would be available from a one large corporation. Some people believe that good salesmen in some who could sell ice to us Eskimo get in an order for someone who neither needs the product nor can afford to pay for it. But that is mistaken idea. Such a person is not a salesman. He is a little more than an extortionist. The great salespeople call on good prospects, not caring to waste their time on poor ones. Frequent use has been made of the word prospect in referring to the potential buyer for a product or service. It's now time to define this some other term. Prospect is a person or institution who can both benefit from buying the product and afford to buy it. Notice there are two conditions we must be satisfied before one can classify a lead, pronounced lead, as being a prospect. First, the person or organization must be able to benefit from the product. Someone who has no use for it is not prospect. Second, no matter how badly the party may want the product or how much he can benefit from it. He cannot pay for it, he is not a prospect. The word benefit is used instead of need to avoid difficulties attempting to determine exactly what anyone truly needs. The important thing is whether or not the product or service will furnish sufficient utility to the individual to warrant his buying it. Let's see, we have five people. Uh, the number one say, what can we do to boost our sales? The second person say, visual dynamics in our media's uh, campaigns, expressive faces, exotic colors, and imagery. The third person say, fiscal expedience and avoidance of high risk ventures. The fourth person say way out designs uh, amorphous shape massive use of hydraulics, and the last person say more customer. Excuse me. Lead or suspect. A lead is the same a person or organization who might possibly buy a prospect. A lead must first be qualified before it can be considered a prospect. Sometimes term suspect has been applied to lead to indicate that the name suspected of being prospect. Qualifying. This is the act of determining whether or not lead or suspect is really a prospect. To qualify a lead means to evaluate its terms of ability to benefit from the product and pay for it. If the lead meets the qualification, he ceases to be a suspect and become a prospect. The qualification which suspect must meet in order to be classed as prospect differ for different selling situations. In varying and separate situations, The prospect should be young, or male, or physician, or parent, or wealthy, or married. Each salesperson must draw up a set of specification or qualification which really prospect must meet. For some propositions, nearly everyone is a prospect, while for others the qualifications are so rigid as to exclude all but a select few. But the salesperson must qualify his prospect of time will be wasted on suspect who will never buy. Good turkey canvassing or cold canvassing. These are called made by a salesman with no advanced knowledge about the person called upon. Call upon all the dentists or lawyers is the community or upon resident in a certain section as the city would have become canvas for. Some salesmen dislike the term cold turkey and prefer to use cold canvassing or new account in referring to such call. The latter has positive connotation, a hint probable success is more dignified and carries no other pleasant association. One firm attribute is success to a policy of making cold calls. We went around the city looking for smokestacks. When we found the smokestacks, we knew there was a manufacturer and therefore prospect and said, Mr. Norman Stone, president of Stone Container Corporation. While most industrial sales While most industrial sales rep considers the random calling upon all business firms to be called canvassing, in strict theory the prospecting method still contains considerable selectivity. Any sizable manufacturer would have never have need for containers and could probably pay for them, so he was qualified by a site as a prospect. Qualifying prospect. Once the salesman has a name of possible prospect, a lead is necessary to qualify. Is the person or firm a good prospect or not? That is the question. Does he have a need? That is the second question. And the third question, does he have the money? The answer to this question may be quite apparent or they may require considerable investigation. It would not take much imagination on the part of the drapery salesperson to realize that the people who have just purchased a new one home will probably be needing draperies and will probably be able to pay for them. They are good prospects. On the other hand, someone selling swimming pools is not as fortunate. Good prospects are not obviously this is person we have to dig a bit for there are no observable facts that to indicate if someone in the family is interested in swimming. Perhaps some observable factor would indicate if they could afford a pool car's furniture, price of house, etc. The same situation exists is industrial selling. A3 does M sales reps selling sandpaper knows that the furniture factory is a top quality prospect, but would have to qualify a firm called the Acme Manufacturing Company. Question number one, what do they make? Number two, they do sand up or polish anything. And fortunately, all the reps has do is ask the company purchasing agent for the answer. Observe what is the life insurance company tells its new agent about selection of prospect. Selects the name of a person who qualify on all 5 points of good prospect. Number one, has need for life insurance. Two, can pay for it. Three, can qualify physical. Four, can qualify morally and is an acceptable occupation. Five, is accessible and of the right type for you, age, education, etc. etc. Read down the list name by name, giving each numerical value. If the first name qualify on all 5 points, write the number 5. If the second qualify are 3 points, write the number 3, so that when you finish, the highest ranking names will be easily seen. Leave the low rated names until you clear up doubts or you have called on your best prospect. There is a financial reason for carefully selecting your prospect. The shopkeeper or cannot succeed in a business if it is cost him too much money to get people into his store. You cannot succeed in the life insurance business if your sale costs you too much time to locate for your time is money. Careful as you can be, there always will be a large percentage of no sale in the prospect pack, and calling upon this is an experience that will wear you out and undermine your courage. On the other hand, those that you sell will give you confidence and renew your courage. To all my friends and viewers, I will take a break for a while. I need to take water. Just wait for a while. I will come back. I will be right back. Okay, just wait. Thank you for waiting. I'm back. Okay, let's proceed to our discussion. Shoutout po to Ed Pinoy Television. Wait lang po ha. I will give you a jacket. Okay, let's proceed to our discussion. Reverting briefly, the analogy between the salesperson and the prospector for valuable ore, we may observe that some mineral deposit may be 5 or 10 times as rich as others. It is the same with prospect list. One list may contain 10% of really good prospect. Excuse me. While another will contain 25% or even more. The difference is the care and intelligence with which the salesperson qualify each name on his list. Prospects are not merely names, they are people. Some are more likely to buy than others are. Excuse me. What is being stressed is that smart salesperson qualifies or tests each name before placing it on any list prospect. Quality prospect. O, bili mo din ako. Yung baso ko nandun sa lamesa, yung mug. Some common prospecting system. Several cold system has been worked out to make the salesperson uh, more efficient or a prospector. It should be emphasized, however, that no system it is guaranteed of successful prospecting unless it's followed intelligently and consistently so that it's become an integral part of salesperson. work schedule. Excuse me. Every successful sales rep has developed his own method of getting prospect, which is probably in combination of the plans here suggested. The important thing is to follow a plan that's proved effective in supplying constantly fresh list or or live prospect. Any system that does this is good one. If a system fails a year, this result is should be abandoned for one that does. No effort has been made to discuss different systems in order of their effectiveness. Some may better adapted to a certain types of selling and kinds of products that are others. Six prospecting systems are used widely enough to justify no effort being made to discuss different systems in other effectiveness. Some may better adapted to a certain types of selling and kinds of products that are other. Six prospecting systems are used widely enough to justify some explanation and comment. These are number one, endless chain. Two, center of influence. Three, personal observation. Four, junior salesman, sometimes called the spatter plan. Five, cold canvas. And six, direct mail and telephone. No matter which systems to use, must have ever remind yourself the friends furnish you with more names than you can usually pick up from other sources. The first our four systems are based on help given by people of this here mere acquaintance. No matter which system you use, you must ever remind yourself that friends furnish you with more names than you can usually pick up from other sources. The first four systems are based on the help given by people. If these people are also friends, they will provide you with more better names than mere acquaintances. The endless chain. This system is based upon the idea from each interview the salesperson should secure the names of additional prospects for future interview. Most salespeople who employ this method attempt to get from each person interview, not just call upon, the names of two or three these friends who possess the same needs for the product or service. Naturally, the plan is more effective when the salesman has been successful in selling the prospect just interview as the new buyer is probably enthusiastic about his purchase and may believe that some friends may like to consider the same person. However, even when the sale has not been made, the plan can work. The prospect was probably interested in the sales offer, or he would not have consistent to listen to the salesperson. Even though he was unable to act immediately, the prospect should still be able to suggest two or three acquaintances who would have the same needs for the product and might be able to act at once. The sales stress may such to such person I understandable why you feel cannot be just now, but I'm sure you can think of three or four of your acquaintance who could use my product to advantage. Occasionally the prospect will object, I wouldn't want to inflict you or any of my friends. A reply is all right with a broad smile. How about giving me the name of people you don't like very well? Many companies, an encyclopedia salesman use a flattering technique is getting referral. He say, the recommendation I'd like to get from you are not recommendation or just anyone, but of those who share your appreciation you for an educational program of this caliber. He say that more one-third of his sales are from referrals. Many companies have trained their salespeople to use part of the endless chain plan for securing prospect, but only few companies have applied the plan is fullest extent. Our company conduct a goodwill club with special privilege and gifts for those who cooperate by turning in names of others who might be interested in the product. Other companies provide salesperson with the other prospect sales people with introduction card to be fulfilled to be filled out by individuals willing to introduce the salesperson to other prospects. One of the most complete plans employing many ramifications of endless chains prospecting is that IC of International Correspondence School in the sales manual of the ICS. This prospecting system is discussed completely. The division director gives the details explain that he used his 4 years when he was in charge of route, and the most of the people under his direction use it with great success. On the assumption that an enrollment constitutes the first link in this chain, the following request is made of a newly enrolled student and a record taken in a notebook of the information furnished. Please give me the name of the one person who works at the same place you do. Give me the same another. Continue until you have the names of all people working with him. Then ask for the name of people with whom the student is intimately acquainted and continue to ask of the names of their acquaintances until all the names possible obtained. Then take each name in turn and ask if the person will make a good student. If the answer is no, ask why, for often the answer will lead you to believe that person is worth interviewing. But when the answer yes, inquire further so as to learn whether the prospect work hours he work, approximately salary, where he lives, material state, etc. Ask your informant when he will see this particular person again. And if possible, get the student to promise he will show his lesson to the prospect and explain what he thinks the school, his courses, and what he expect to accomplish through his student. If the student agree to do this, make definite appointment to a report of the interview. When you have obtained this report, you will know what to do. If you cannot induce your endless chainer to interview the prospect, interview him yourself. Whether or not the interview result is an enrollment, you can use the endless chain process on him. Also, obtain the names and their other information about several of his friends. For example, starting with one person, these data are obtained about two more. When this reason are interviewed, two or more obtained from each, or total of four. This for yield 8. This rate existing, therefore the name endless chain. Analyzing these plans, you have first the name and address and working hours of prospect as well as the name of his employer. This information will guide you as the most suitable time and place for an interview. Second, you have learned the approximate earnings of the prospect, which will indicate whether or not he can afford, of course. Third, you know in advance whether the prospect is married or single and whether is terrified and ambition. It's moving again. The camera is rolled again. The endless change method is especially effective in the development of prospect of intangible like investment and insurance. In the sale of such services, it is necessary for the salesperson to establish feeling of confidence and goodwill between the prospect and himself early in the sales interview. If this is not done, the prospect will frequently prove unwilling to enter into discussion of his private financial problem with comparative stranger. However, if the salesman can come rearing a short note or kind of introduction from a friend of the prospect, it much more likely that he will accept it upon essentially as basis of friendship and confidence. Although the salesman has not actually been recommended to the prospect, still the introduction carries with an element of recommendation because the prospect reasons that unless his friend has felt confidence in the sales rep, the introduction would have been given. This constitutes what is called referral lead. It is the best kind of prospect because a basis of friendship, friendliness, and mutuality of interest had been established between salesman and prospect. However, it is not a guarantee of success in the sales that will depend upon the skill of the salesman and prospect. Uh, that will depend on upon the skill of the salesman is discovering the real problems of the prospect and solving. An executive for the Singer Sewing Machines company said, a year ago relied to a great extent on the old canvas method. We now put a great deal of emphasis on referrals, especially in the more populated areas. These referrals comes mainly from satisfied customer and we go a long way trying to satisfy a customer. Sales Salespeople for mutual fund usually refer method almost exclusively as do house-to-house salesperson for cooking utensil. In industrial selling, the endless chain prospecting system, also known as referral selling, is widely used. Who is in a better position to know other business executive who might be prospect than the business executive with whom the executive who might prospect than business executive with whom sales rep is talking. One salesman is popular priceman slack called upon. Small dealer handling men apparel who carry only quality lines. He quickly turned the salesman's down once the price line on the slack was discovered. He did refer the salesman to a store in town which would be the most likely to take on the line. A salesman for inland container was referred by the customer to a new firm that was opening its door and would be needing some packaging for its products. Certains of influence. In this system, the sales representative develop in a community or territory a number of persons who serve as center of influence. These people may be customer of the salesperson or they may be influential friends who are willing to cooperate. As an illustration of how the system might function, let us assume that a salesman of stock and bonds returned to build a business in the town where they attended college and was a prominent athlete and a member of fraternity as well as other college organization. He started to develop several centers of influence to aid him in obtaining good prospects. He gets in touch with his old professor of finance, his former coach, his fraternity advisor, and two or three well-known business executives who remember him. To the centers of influence investment service offers, and to what extent his knowledge and experience could benefit his client, he persuades the centers of influence to assist him in meeting good prospects. Probably he will try to make client out of as many of these centers and influence as possible, although that is not necessary to the success of the system. Referring to the Penn Mutual Life Insurance Company retaining course for agents, this is company suggestion for the use of this prospecting plan. Call on the most important man you know and say as follow. George, you know I am in the life insurance business. I haven't come around to talk about you that or to try to sell you or to you anything. But there is something you can do that will help me a lot. Who is the most promising young businessman you know? I'm going to tell you exactly what I expected to say to him. You can patch it with full holes if you don't like it, and I would consider it a favor. Give him your sales presentation. Maybe this is known as a byproduct sale. Ask for a card of introduction. Here is another method of approach for new agents. Mr. Brown, I have made what I believe to be a mighty fine connection with real future for me. I am a present taking the training course of the Penn Mutual Life Insurance Company, but I'm doing no selling as yet. As I expected this to become my life work, I am anxious to build a permanent and substantial clientele. You can help me to this extent. If you will, my job is to get before people in a favorable light who is the most promising young married man you know. In the event that man say that he cannot think of anyone, it will be necessary for you to stimulate his recollection by painting out such men as his office associate, his doctor, his dentist neighbor, fellow member of his church, etc. The important things to remember in prospecting through center influence that is they should be favorably impressed with you. Do everything you can enhance to this feeling. A life insurance agent aided the minister of her church in solving critical financial problem. In a connection with the new church building, the minister was not able to buy life insurance, but he did prove in an invaluable center of influence by putting the agent in touch with member of the congregation who had need for the service of the insurance expert. He supplied qualified prospect and provided an approach to them upon a basis of friendship and confidence. Although the minister received no direct reward for uh, his corporation, he realized that he received in return the support and financial assistance of the agent. This recognition of the value of such corporation is what's enabled the salesperson to build a center of influence. People may help because they know that the salesperson in turn may be in position to help them. Industrial sales reps frequently use other reps as resources of prospect information. Representatives for non-competing products are usually more than willing to talk about development and the territory, new firms opening and personal changes, trouble being encountered by various concerns, new activities being initiated by existing firms, and other gossip. They are willing to help you, for they expect you to return the favor, to stretch to You scratch my back, I scratch yours. For many salespeople, bankers prove helpful. They have more contacts than most people and know just about everything that is going on in the business community. One being an expert on the steel industry and other who has have spent years learning about oil or textile or a paper. It is a wise sales reps who cultivates a close friendship with knowledgeable banker. Similarly, many stock brokers are especially well informed about what is going on in the area. Executive in industry usually are the best source of information as to what is going on in the industry. For thus may keep abreast of current development. They have lunch with other executive, pick up many habits information that may have the of value to salespeople who is thinking and remodeling the office, who is looking at computer, who is having a packaging problem, who is unhappy with tracking connection, who needs a new conveyor system, etc. Naturally, some executive or more in the know the others. Many sales reps make a point to become a good friends with executive whom seems to know what is going on and would like to talk about it. Those who wonder why people give such information such sales reps should realize that is doing so they make themselves feel more important and they have hope to enhance their prestige with the salespeople. They like to give the impression that they are industry big shot. Salespeople employing the center of influence method usually make of effort to repay the service of the contact group by periodic expression of appreciation, such as gift at Christmas time cards on anniversary and fairly frequent calls. To take them personally for rest and courtesy to explain a new service or feature of sales reps. Line with might awaken their interest in its in the rep and the director to their thought so that the name of new possible prospect might come to them. This could take little of a salesperson time in plan for regularly, and the essential to success of the plan. No one in the going to give much through the helping salesperson unless the salesperson prove the grateful and helpful friends in return. In addition, maybe business executive expects information in return. They expect the sales reps to give them some prospect from the encounters. Is called well Walter Scribway sales promotion manager for Lily Tulip Cup company claims I team up once with three other salesmen in non-competitive lines to furnish information to each other. We call out the same market. I had tie in with the salesman who sold ice cream cabinet, for example, and other tie in with the man calling on the restaurant trade. Anyway, I'd come to home at night and there always be there or four leads or and I have three and or four the others fellows. Just one further thought, every individual is a center of influence. He is the center of his own little world and can exert some influence on certain person. The more friends a person has, the more centers of influence one can utilize in finding prospect. Personal observation. The personal observation system is used many times by the great majority of salespeople. Some call is the initiative or eye and ears system. It consists of being constantly alert to recognize prospect leads no matter where one is or with whom one may be talking. This ability to discover prospect in the routine of daily existence is much more highly developed in some people than alive in others. A life insurance agent was sitting at a service club luncheon with even friends. One of the persons seated at this table was competitor. The others were business and professional people. During the luncheon, various members of the little group dropped remarks which our agent noted particularly because each remark appeared to him to contain the valuable prospect lead. One woman mentioned that she was starting new venture in partnership with two other people. The salesman immediately see a need for a key person insurance on the firm executive. Another person was taking about his new twins. He had new responsibility that increased his need for insurance. Another man spent a good deal of time talking about his grandchildren, of whom he was extremely proud that this man was a prospect for buying insurance or those grandchildren and giving them ownership of the policy. A neat way to give money to them tax-free as a consequence of those chance remarks the salesman gathered information that enabled him subsequently to take two sizable sales. His competitor sitting at the same table evidently failed to appreciate that remarks had prospecting significance. In the use of this method, salesperson should develop a nose for prospect as keen as good reporter knows for news. Indeed, the tip concerning a hot prospect is news, the best kinds to such a salesperson. The local newspaper is filled with news items which are lead. Some of these items are useful to a certain salespeople and as a can't value to other hands, it is necessary to evaluate each one in terms of the individual salesperson prospecting problem. For example, the insurance agent notes news of promotion, engagements, wedding, births, deaths, and stories dealing with business and finance. The sales machinery and factory equipment watches for news awarding of contracts for roads or building permits, for classified ads, seeking additional workers, for fires or other catastrophes involving factories for news concerning news product. The society page contains many items of interest to salespeople for home furnishing, wearing apparel, jewelry, etc. The root person, estate broker, is keenly interested in approaching wedding transfer of executives to or form the committee expansion plans of local business concern and promotion of personnel to better paying jobs. A change in a zoning ordinance or a legal inquiry concerning eviction of tenants is agreed for the broker meal. Just about every salesperson can find items of deal personal value in the local newspaper and should learn to read it with seeing eye. The industrial salesman and the sales engineer will find that the trade publication in their industry and the industry of their potential customer are filled with news that will provide goods lead. Certain firms are expanding their operation into new field. A company is building a new plant is west over Shoe, Montana. An advertisement affirming accounting a new product may suggest additional needs this item will create for its buyer as many products complement each other. A merger may free a customer from his reciprocity buying arrangement with competitor. Every action in the business world creates markets for many different things. Every business startup expansion or demise brings forth demand for a certain product. Think of all the goods and services required by a new company just getting its operation underway. Many rather ingenious prospecting method based on using one eye is coordination with the brain have been developed by resourceful salesmen and saleswomen. Some of this involve legwork. Charles M. Stern, field manager for Koch Brothers Incorporation, waterproofing chemicals relates. I take talks with just took a look at a problem which our product can solve. Not long ago, I was walking near New York Central Park. I noted the casement windows in a new apartment development had started to warp a condition our product can correct. I've sold the management 150,000 linear feet of our striping since that day. Sales rep for printing paper, scan magazine for poor half-stone, uneven capacity, or lint build up on printers says they find in this and other signs. Evidence that the publication is using the wrong kind of paper and is therefore a prospect for a paper that will give better result. An Indiana office furniture salesman does same of his prospecting by prowling in the street at night. He scouts for office light burning long after the end of the work day and approaches the burners and midnight oil the following day with the idea that they set up a second office home. In Los Angeles, there are a highly successful Cadillac salesman who was a telephoning his demonstrator. Out prospecting, he cruises down residential street looking for old caddies. When he spot one, he turned right into the driveway behind it. Then he looks up, however, name in the crisscross driveway behind it. Then he look up the homeowner name in crisscross telephone directory, which is scary. Pick up his radio telephone. He calls up. Good afternoon, Mrs. Jones. This is John Smith of Super Motors. Have you seen the new Cadillac? No, I haven't. Would you like to ride in one? I'm sitting in your driver right now, Mrs. Jones, in brand new Cadillac, and you would like you to feel how it's drive. One insurance salesman used the system to locate mail a prospect he can call on at home during the day. He stops at factory parking lots in the evenings and jot down license plates, number of cars. Then he checks them with car dealers for the names of the owners. Since they're working on the swing shift, he can see them late in the morning or early in the afternoon. Real estate course, the street looking for clues to the prospect, houses with for sales by owner, sign of them empty buildings, new for lease sign, new construction, etc. Once enterprising Los Angeles real estate salesman who specialized in individual properties developed as particularly effective way of discovering manufacturers who were thinking of moving to a larger building. He would drive around industrial areas looking for plant whose parking lots were overflowing. He reasoned that if the company had outgrown its lots were overflowing. He reasoned that if the company had outgrown its parking facility, it may have also have outgrown in its plant. It was usually right. If this method of personal observation is followed to its logical conclusion, the salesperson will be on the lookout for this information while on the way to work in the office, on the streets, waiting to interview, prospect, or actually the taking with them, a lunch or at home listening to the conversation or reading the newspaper. Prospect are everywhere. All you have to do is keep your eyes and ears open and learn to recognize the sign up. Okay, to all my friends and viewers, I will end this discussion, but I will continue this in the afternoon. Okay, my topic is the selling process, prospecting. This is all about prospecting, the proper prospecting. Okay, guys. See you there at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. So to all my friends and viewers, small YouTuber, thank you for coming with my channel to my channel, and for that, uh, I would like to remind you when a fellow says it ain't the money, but the principle. Oh, the thing is the money. Small opportunity are often the beginnings of the great enterprise. Okay. Uh, to all my friends and viewer, I will shout you all. Thank you for coming. Shout all to all small YouTuber, to all my friends and viewers. Shout out to all. God bless you and more blessing to come. Thank you. Bye bye.